Hello, everyone. Good evening to all of you. So, let me share the link with all of you, and then we're going to start really a great discussion here with one of our special guests tonight. Let me, okay, yes. Okay, so as you know that Counsel India is an organization where we are working to solve the emotional health problems. So we offer you a wide range of solutions. We have psychology expert, we have psychiatrists associated with Counsel India. So we offer you some psychological solutions. If you are suffering from any kind of problem like depression, anxiety, addiction, relationship problems, behavioral problems, so Counsel India is a solution for you. And also we offer some training programs for you people, some learning practical psychology learning courses for you, so that you can become a better counselor, so that you can also help yourself by learning psychology, and also you can help the people around you, the people in your family. Yeah, my name is Bobby Thakur. I'm a counseling psychologist. I'm CEO of Counsel India. I'm an entrepreneur, and also I consider myself a person who is working for the transformation. And we are on a mission to provide you a simplified emotional well-being technology to each one of you. So today we're gonna learn really so many things, because we have a session, we have a discussion, great discussion today with Mr. Ankit. He is an evolutionary psychologist. Now you're gonna know about what is evolutionary psychologist very soon, and we're gonna disclose or demystify various things in this session. So are you ready for that? So let me welcome to Mr. Ankit for this. Mr. Ankit, I welcome you on behalf of Counsel India. Please turn on your video.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
Hi. Good evening. I'm good. I'm good. How are
Very
you?
good evening. I'm good too. So, Mr. Ankit, I want you to tell your own experience in your own words,
Okay.
right? Yeah, please.
Uh, First of all, thanks for the generous introduction. Let me tell you, I don't know if I can call myself an evolutionary psychologist, but yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I mean, I'm familiar with the subject. I've been teaching this subject since the past, I guess, 7 years now,
Okay.
7 to 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a ever learning process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I basically I'm from Mumbai and I'm an assistant professor. I
Mm-hmm.
teach in a college in Mumbai, which is affiliated to Mumbai University. The name of the college is Vivekanand Education Society,
Okay.
College of Arts, Science and Commerce. So popularly known as VES College in Mumbai. So yeah, I've been teaching the master's curriculum, which Mumbai University offers. I teach papers like statistics, research methodology, I teach evolutionary psych, I
Okay.
teach basic psychometrics. Yeah, apart from that, I'm
Mm-hmm.
also been doing my own independent research in the field of evolutionary psychology and social psychology. I've graduated from Mumbai University. I've done my post graduation from Mumbai University with a specialization being social psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also qualified my NET long back 2012. So I've been teaching since 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also worked in the corporate sector for 1 year. We used to the company that I was working for. We used to provide psychometric assessments,
Mm-hmm.
various companies,
Mm-hmm.
based on the Big Five model, 16
Right.
PF model. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing.
Sounds good. You have done a lot of work.
Yeah.
See, Mr. Ankit, in India,
Hmm.
generally people know three streams of the psychology,
Hmm.
right? Clinical psychology, counseling psychology, and organization psychology,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? When we go out of the India, so we understand sports psychology, criminal psychology, a lot of branches.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
India, especially, there are three branches people are focusing on. So, would you like to share what is this evolutionary psychology? What this term means? So, because this is a new thing to us, what is evolutionary psychology? Yeah.
Sure. Sure. So see, as you said, clinical psych, counseling psych. industrial psych, and social psych. These are the typical specializations offered, right?
Right.
But see, these are streams which are actually, when a professional, a student was just done his or her post graduation, would go out and work in those sectors. So these are certain domains that, they are available for students in India to work in.
Right.
Even nowadays, we see forensic psych coming in. But when you
Mhm.
talk about evolutionary psych, I would not say, I am not sure if evolutionary psych would be a separate field, but I would say it's a separate discipline, or rather a paradigm.
Okay.
It's more of a perspective to look at certain phenomena. Now, when I say phenomena, these are broad ranging phenomena, right from our, behavioral traits, behaviors, sorry, not behavioral traits, behaviors, psychological traits, our emotions, things like interpersonal attraction, also certain behaviors that we see day to day life. Like, for example, if we talk about a behavior which is very problematic nowadays, vaccine hesitancy, all
Right.
these kind of behaviors that we see around us today, which social psychology tries to explain. So, evolutionary psych looks at it from a Darwinian lens. I think many of us might have heard of Charles Darwin,
Yeah.
but we might have heard of Charles Darwin in the perspective of biology in school,
Right.
theory
Right.
of natural selection.
Mhm.
And one famous line that we have all heard when it comes to Darwin, survival of the fittest, right? That is often a very popular term. But let me tell you, it's popular, but it's not technically correct. It's not just survival of the fittest. We'll come to that in some time when we go ahead with the discussion. So, evolutionary psych, what it does is it takes the lens, the Darwinian lens, and tries to understand human behavior and our traits, our psychological phenomena, and applies it, or rather uses that logic and tries to understand of, why we do the things that we do. It tries to answer why, not
Mhm.
what.
Yeah.
So if I use one word, that would be evolutionary psych is more about the functional perspective of behavior, and how these behaviors that we indulge in today, how
Mhm.
they have benefited in some way
Mhm.
long ago, like in the ancestral past.
Right.
Our ancestors who were living in the jungles and the plains of Africa long back, or wherever they were staying, rather, not just Africa. We migrated out of Africa eventually, but how they served our ancestors to survive and to reproduce.
Focus on why this is, what kind of benefit we used to have. That's why this behavior has been developed. So, would you like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
give
yeah,
some
yeah.
example of any kind of behavior, like how it comes into the evolutionary psychology?
Any specific example, you
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sure. So now let us talk about a very common behavior,
Hmm.
that we see, gossip.
Gossip. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, gossip is a very mundane activity, right? We all indulge in gossip
Yeah.
sometime or the other. Now,
Hmm.
typically, we have a very layman perspective of gossip. That gossip is something that we just do, to pass time. चलो कुछ काम धंधा नहीं है, gossip कर लेते हैं, right? इधर उधर का बात कर लेते हैं. And
Right.
we have all these stereotypical notions that one gender indulges in more gossip than the other. We have these stereotypical notions, right? From just if you talk from a layman's perspective, but evolutionary psych will try to
Hmm.
answer, okay, why do humans indulge in gossip? What purpose could it have served? Now, see, if I tell you in a very simple language, ultimately, actually, the logic of evolutionary psych is very simple. It's nothing complicated. That's the beauty of the subject. Uh, at least that's what I feel. Okay, I may be wrong, but that's what I feel. Intuitively, it's very easy to grasp. So now, if I talk about gossip, so what would evolutionary psych say? That because humans have been social animals, right? We have lived in
Right.
groups,
Hmm.
and it was important for us to live in groups. Why? Because we used to live in very harsh environments earlier,
Hmm.
where we had dangers from predators.
Hmm.
We had dangers not just from predators, but even like when we used to hunt,
Hmm.
long back, when we used to hunt millions of years ago,
Hmm.
there was always this problem of food scarcity, right? When we used to hunt, because hunting is a very variable activity. It's not a guaranteed activity that it will give you food today if you go out to hunt. So now there were people who would help others by sharing their food. Just an example I'm giving.
Right.
But there are also people who would
Hmm.
take the favors from others, but they would not return the favors, right? When the time comes, they would not reciprocate the help. So gossip is something like, it's a social mechanism which will try to keep a check. It will keep a track of who is doing what, and which people are the people who are contributing to the group in some ways, returning the favors that are supposed to return, or doing the obligations that are supposed to fulfill, and
Hmm.
those people who are potential violators of rules. So gossip helps us to keep a track. It's like a mental accounting kind of a thing that we have.
Yeah, and one more notion regarding this gossiping, that the different gender, like
Hmm.
females do the gossiping more.
Yeah.
So is
So
it?
that's what if you say, if you just go back 2 minutes ago, what I said, that is one typical notion that we have, that, okay,
Mhm.
one gender would gossip more than the other. But
Yeah.
see, the thing is that actually, if you ask me, both the genders gossip, both the genders have some maybe, tendencies to, talk around, इसके बारे में कुछ बोला, उसके बारे में कुछ बोला. But
Mhm.
maybe what evolutionary psych would say is that the content that, or rather the things that both the genders would talk about, might be a bit different because it has served some different purposes for each gender. So for example, let me give an example.
Mhm.
So if we talk about now human mating, okay,
Mhm.
we talk about human mating, interpersonal attraction, etc. So both males and females are in this constant competition, what we call intrasexual competition, right? So males are competing with other males to get access to females, right? Females are also competing with other females to get access to desirable males, right? When you talk
Mhm.
about human mating. So the thing is that now the domain how males would compete is, one is the physical violence, aggression. That's
Right.
what we even study in developmental psychology. That boys are typically more likely to indulge in rough and tumble play, when they are in school, and females are more likely to indulge in indirect verbal aggression. But now, if you talk about gossip or slander, किसी के बारे में कुछ बोल देना, defame कर देना. So what evolutionary psych would say is that males are more likely to gossip or slander other males,
Mhm.
use slander against other males on certain particular areas, like the rival male status, his resources. You know, so this particular guy does not have the resources that he claims he has, right? Why? Because resources have been a very
Mhm.
important asset for males to attract females in the ancestral past. That is, successful hunters, males who were successful hunters, those who have more power over the other males, were more likely to acquire mates. That is one perspective. And when it comes to females, females were more likely to be, perceived as attractive in the mating scenario if they had certain qualities like physical attractiveness, younger age, because
Mhm.
that indicates more reproductive value, right?
But Ankit, is it true that females are more into the gossiping thing?
No, if you understand it, that's what I'm trying to emphasize, that both genders maybe gossip or spread words or slanders or rumors about other people, but the content areas might be different. A male
Mhm.
is more likely to say, this particular guy, he does not have those resources, he's just faking his resources,
Mhm.
he does not have all the money, he's just using some friend's money. Just an
Mhm.
example.
Right.
Females are more likely to gossip about some other females, let's say, physical characteristics,
Mhm.
that she or she might be using makeup, because again, their domain of competition, according to evolutionary psychology, if you go according to theory of mating strategies,
Mhm.
females compete with other females over things like physical attractiveness,
Okay.
males
Yes.
compete with other males over resources. So the
Mhm.
kind of things that they say about others might be different. And if you talk about in general, forget
In
the
general.
mating scenario. If you talk about things like someone has broken some rule,
Mhm.
someone has cheated or stolen something, what
Mhm.
is going to spread around, in the society, irrespective of
Mhm.
the gender. Why? Because that tells other members of the group that you have to stay wary of this person. Don't
Mhm.
extend any favors to this person, otherwise this person can be a threat to you. So that's like a check, a social check that humans have come up with long before we came up with formal rules and regulations,
Mhm.
right?
So, Mr. Ankit,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, like, how this evolutionary psychology concepts are solving the problem in psychology, how it is different from other, because in general we, being a psychologist, we use different therapies to
Mm.
solve the problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how this evolutionary psychology thing is creating a difference when we talk about
Mm.
solution that psychology offer for the
Okay.
problems. Yeah.
See, I would say, in research methodology, we say that there are two types of research. One is basic research and one is applied research.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When we talk about applied research, we're talking about research which is more solution oriented towards specific problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Society
Mm-hmm.
is facing. And
Mm-hmm.
basic research is more the fundamental research, the theoretical research, which
Mm-hmm.
tries to understand and build theories about certain phenomena, why they occur. When we talk about evolutionary psychology, as I said, that evolutionary psychology is more of an academic discipline a more research-oriented discipline which tries
Okay.
to understand human behavior and give us insights. And as we know in psych, one thing that we learn in counseling psych as well, that insight is the first step to change.
Right.
Right? If there is no insight,
Hmm.
we are less likely to change. Right? I think that you would agree with me, being a counseling psychologist.
Yeah.
So evolutionary psych tries to give us certain insights about, okay, why do we indulge in negative behaviors like, let's say, aggression or jealousy? Why is it that men are more likely to infer that a woman is interested in him even though she might not be interested in him? Why is it that men typically feel that if a woman smiles at him, she might be interested? Why is it so? So I'll give you the answer to that. I'll give you the answer since I've touched this topic. So one theory of evolutionary psych is that men have a lower threshold of inferring sexual interest. Why? Because in the ancestral past, it has helped them to initiate their mating or courtship strategies. If they infer that, okay, the woman might be possibly interested in me, so men can take that first step to try to attract that female. That's the evolutionary reason behind it. So now if I know this concept that, okay, I am likely to think this way because this is how my ancestors have benefited, that's the first step to get insight into my behavior and possibly change it. That's the beauty of evolutionary psych. Evolutionary psych will say that once you have insight, it is very, you can say it opens the gateways for you to change your behaviors, certain behaviors which are not so desirable. And also another thing, I'll just give one more point. Certain principles, like let's say advertising. Now we often see TV advertisements where they are selling some object like a bike, a motorcycle. But often we see certain weird things, like why is it that if a company is selling motorcycles, why is it that they are pairing an attractive female with that motorcycle? What's the logic? It does not fit logically, right? But this is where evolutionary psych would try to understand, okay, what happens is if they are targeting a particular segment of the population, let's say the male population, and they are projecting a bike which is very macho, by pairing that with an attractive female, that is more likely to activate those male instincts, and that is more likely to facilitate recall for that brand. So the man is more likely to remember that brand and then maybe purchase that brand. So that is the principle of evolutionary psych used in advertising.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in that way, that's an indirect application of the principles.
Yeah. And you were talking about the Darwin's theory that people understand in biology,
Yeah.
right? And you were saying that it is quite different when we talk about the evolutionary psychology. So would you like to explain like the Darwin's theory, or
Okay.
I mean how it is
So see,
connected?
I would say Darwin's theory, the concept of natural selection that we know of. What is natural selection? What is the crux of natural selection? Natural selection concept says that any particular trait, or rather not a trait, I would say a variant of a trait. Let's say height. Okay, let me talk about height, a very physical trait, biological trait. Now when we see height, you see variation in the population. There are some people who are tall, some people who are short, some people who are average height, right?
Right.
Even physical size. Now people vary. So what Darwin's theory would say, that variation in the population of a particular trait is the first, you can say, stepping stone for natural selection to start. Now, what will happen is there are certain variants of a particular trait which might be favorable for that particular individual or organism to survive, to have a better chance of survival. And if the individual survives, then the next step is to reproduce, spread the genes. So any particular trait which is favorable to that organism to survive and to reproduce, that trait will slowly, like, it will pass down through the population, through the succeeding generations. So natural selection acts like a filtration mechanism. Across millions of years, it will slowly favor those traits which will help the organism to survive and reproduce, and that is how those traits will pass down. So if I talk about aggression now, so natural selection will say that why are males more physically aggressive? Because it has helped them to hunt. It has also helped them to deter other rival males. So that is why physical aggression is more likely to be seen in males rather than females, because natural selection has favored those aggressive and risky instincts in males.
So do
So
you,
that is what evolutionary psych would say, that natural selection can be applied not just to biological features but also to psychological features. And that's
yeah,
the similarity between how it can be applied to biology and psychology. That's the similarity.
yeah, got your point. So what are some common misunderstanding about evolutionary psychology in general?
Okay, interesting. So the common misunderstandings, first of all, unfortunately, there's this perspective in social science. It is known as, if I use a technical term, it's known as the standard social science model, SSSM.
Mm-hmm.
What does that perspective say? That perspective says that we are born with a blank slate. We are born with a blank mind. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever we are today, that is because of learning, culture. That's the blank slate view. Now,
Mm-hmm.
evolutionary psych offers a different view. It offers a view which says that even though there are many things that we learn from culture, maybe, but at the same time, there are certain pre-programmed instincts that we are born with.
Okay.
Right. Now, what people who go with the blank slate view, what they feel is that evolutionary psych is justifying behaviors which are wrong or immoral by saying that we are born with it, so we can't help it now. Because we are born with an aggressive instinct, which means going to war and killing people is right. That's a misunderstanding,
Yeah.
which people with the blank slate perspective have. But evolutionary psych does not say that.
Mm-hmm.
Evolutionary psych says that these instincts are there. It does
Mm-hmm.
not say that we are, programmed like robots to execute those instincts, no matter whatever the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
It actually follows the interactionist perspective. It says that there should be a right environmental stimulus or trigger to trigger those instincts. Only then those instincts will be manifested.
So,
Just because I am aggressive, you are aggressive, I mean born with an aggressive instinct, does not mean I'm going to go to war and kill people, right? Does not mean that.
or is it like we can transform those instincts, or we
See, we
can
cannot
learn?
we cannot eliminate those instincts, but we can
Mm-hmm.
definitely regulate those instincts
Mm-hmm.
with the right insight,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So we can definitely regulate that.
Okay. Great. Great. So,
Yeah.
my next question is, what can it explain about human judgment and decision making when we talk about the evolutionary psychology?
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Uh, okay. If you go to a jungle in the middle of the night and you hear some rustling sound in the
Hmm.
leaves, what are you likely to think?
Maybe there will be any wild animal.
Yeah, that's the first answer that came to your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
But logically, it could be wind also.
Yes.
Logically,
Yes.
or why are you likely to think that it's a wild animal?
Because I have fear from that.
Yeah. Why is there a fear?
Because it can kill me, and I don't want
Yeah.
to be killed.
Okay. Yeah. So this is like the smoke detector principle. You know, a smoke detector in a mall or in a hotel. आप smoking करते हो,
Mm-hmm.
धुआं होता है, the smoke detector will go off, right? It
Mm-hmm.
will not differentiate whether it's a fire or it is just harmless smoking, cigarette smoking.
Yeah.
It is going to play safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a bias towards inferring that it is danger. So smoke detector will go off. Similarly, our mind is like a smoke detector in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hear some sound in the jungle,
Mm-hmm.
your mind is going to infer, it's going to make a type 1 error. Type 1 error as in a false alarm. It is going to think, oh, there is a danger, even though there is no danger, maybe. But there is a danger, there is a wild animal. So why? It can trigger those escape mechanisms so that you survive. So that is why in certain occasions, what are we likely to think? We are likely to think that there is some sort of an organism or an object which is out to get me. So you're always more towards that survival oriented, protection mechanism, that okay, kuch to hai which is posing a threat to my life, and you are more likely to commit a type 1 false positive error, right, under situations where there is some sort of uncertainty, where you don't have complete information. Why? Because it
Mm-hmm.
is a survival related advantage to you. Now, okay, I'll give you an example which is current. uh, in the current scenario, abhi corona, we are facing this issue of corona.
Yes.
What is one conspiracy theory behind the COVID pandemic? One conspiracy theory that we often see in media or people around us. XYZ country has deliberately started this corona pandemic so that our economy is damaged, right? Would you agree? We often hear that.
Yeah, we
All these
do.
conspiracy theories. Now, what would
Mm-hmm.
evolutionary psych say about that? Our mind,
Mm-hmm.
why does it so much go into these conspiracy theories? What attracts us so much? The thing is that, see, humans have this tendency to seek out patterns even when there are no patterns. Humans are more
We try to
likely
create
to,
patterns in our mind.
yeah, we are more likely to attribute blame to someone.
Mm.
Why? Because it helps us to make meaning out of a situation which is unexplained. Otherwise, we get very all jittery. Okay, why can't I explain this? Uncertainty or ambiguity is not tolerated by humans.
So we
So
always
it
try
gives
to
a sense
create
of
boundaries,
control.
you're saying.
Sorry?
We always try to create boundaries in our
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. So we try to create some sort of explanations, rational explanations, even
Right.
though sometimes there might not be any rational explanation. Why? Because it gives us a sense of control. Otherwise,
Hmm.
that loss of control or lack of control is very threatening to us. That also we study in general psychology, right? Helplessness or lack of control is something which definitely threatens us psychologically or emotionally. So by going by conspiracy theories, it at least helps us to soothe our minds. Okay, there might be some person or some body which is responsible to what is happening to me. So at least I have some degree of closure.
Right.
So that is where we make errors in judgment, or we make errors in attributions. That is what the evolutionist perspective would say.
Okay. So my next question is, can evolutionary psychology gives us insights about problems like prejudice and stereotypes? Because there are a lot of, I mean, we heard these stereotypes and prejudice things.
Yeah. So see, in social psych, we say there is this thing, us versus them, in group versus out group. Right? Social identity theory we have often heard in social psych. So humans have this tendency to create boundaries between people.
Yeah.
Right? Now, from an evolutionary perspective, see what happens is at any given point of time, technically, if I go by cognitive psych principles, at any given point of time, our mind is or our senses are bombarded with information, too much information. Now, at a given point of time, we cannot compute all this information, calculate all the probabilities, and then make the right decision as per probabilities, right? Sometimes when it comes to survival, we need to make decisions on the spot in a jiffy, right? Now, if I'm meeting a new person, whom I'm not familiar with, I'm not going to give myself time. Okay, let me get introduced to this person. Let me see whether he's a good person or no, whether he's a threat to my life or no. What I will do, okay, he's belonging to XYZ group. I will give him a label. Danger or no danger. In group versus out group. If he's an out group or she's an out group, then potentially he or she is a threat. So I'm stereotyping that person in a particular category. Why? Because those boundaries have helped ancestors to create demarcations between what is safe and what is possibly unsafe, or who is unsafe or who is safe.
Or it is always that we try to solve our, the problem or the question that we have in our mind. So
yeah, but maybe these solutions are not always rational.
Yeah.
Okay, but they were survival oriented. We might not call it moral or rational, but definitely they helped our survival in the past, ancestral past, millions of years ago. And that is why this tendency has kept passing down across generations.
Okay, nice. So my next question from you is, what can we learn about attraction and relationships from evolutionary psychology? Though you have shared a little bit about it, would you like to tell us more about it, the relationships and attraction?
Yeah. So, I will just recommend, I'll go into that question, but, there is this book, Evolution of Desire by Dr. David Buss. He's a very acclaimed author of evolutionary psych. So he has elaborated on this, mating strategies. So what David Buss says is that, see, there are two types of mating strategies that we follow. Long-term strategies and short-term strategies.
Okay.
Right. So when we talk about, let's say, marriage as an institution. Okay. So see, marriage is a social institution. We have invented this concept of marriage where two people unite, bring up a child, right? But if you talk about biologically, humans have not been entirely monogamous. Okay. It's like neither have been humans been very, very promiscuous. They are somewhere in the between. Like if you talk about our distant cousin, a chimpanzee or a bonobo monkey, right? They are more promiscuous compared to humans. Humans are somewhere in the middle. Not very monogamous, not very promiscuous. Now, the thing is that we have brought marriage as an institution. Why? Because it has helped us to invest in our gene pool, in our child, and bring up the offspring when both the parents are around. Now, what happens is there are gender differences in the way in which we implement those strategies. So, what evolutionary psych would say is that the Darwinian notion is that when a man is seeking out a partner, a mate, men are more driven by, now this is where the common stereotypes are actually somewhere true. What people think about men is that somewhere they are true as per research as well. So men are more likely to perceive a woman as attractive if she has certain features. One is age. Younger age is perceived to be more attractive as per research as compared to women who are older. Why? Because youth in a woman is considered as a sign of reproductive potential reproductive success.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are certain physical indicators like a waist to hip ratio. A waist to hip ratio around 0.70 in that range, 0.70, 0.80. Narrow waist, broad hips is considered to be healthier. Why? Because that indicates good childbearing capacity in a woman. Now, these are certain things which are very subconscious. A man does not consciously think that does this woman meet these criteria. No, it is subconscious, instinctive. A man is not even aware of these things, right? Now, if you talk about from a woman's perspective, long-term perspective, if a woman is seeking out a partner from the long-term perspective, what evolutionary psych would say is that, again, this is all data-based concepts I'm telling you, cross-cultural data.
Mm-hmm.
So women are more likely to find men with certain characteristics as more attractive. Men with, one is greater resources. Why? Because again, in the ancestral past, resources means what? Hunting success, land, etc. That ensured that the woman and her offspring would survive. So that tendency has passed down across generations. Okay. Then women are more likely to prefer men who are slightly, taller and maybe more dominant, broad shoulders. Why? Again, that indicates better chances at intrasexual competition. Such a strong man, a powerful man, can deter other rival males and keep the woman and the offspring safe. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And if you talk about from a short-term perspective, evolutionary psych would say that in that case, women are more likely to look out for certain features like masculinity, where masculinity can be indicated by certain physical features, like let's say broad shoulders compared to the waist, like a V-shaped torso. Why? Because that indicates healthier genes. So if the woman has an offspring, that offspring can get the healthy genes from the father.
Okay. So this is automatically in the subconscious mind of.
Yes. It is not like a calculated decision that okay, I like this person because he or she has a particular type of body, or he or she has resources or whatever. It's not so conscious. It's more like driven by an impulse somewhere.
Okay. So that's how this evolutionary psychology is playing the role. I mean, it gives us a perspective to understand things, why these things are happening.
Yeah, and it also gives us an alternate perspective. Now, when I'm talking about mating, human mating, I just said something that women, according to evolutionary psych, prefer men who are resourceful. Now, what happens is there is this one criticism against evolutionary psych, where people say that this is not because of instincts, or this is not because of some selection forces at play, but because the other concept, the sociological explanation. So there is this hypothesis, structural powerlessness hypothesis, where the structural powerlessness hypothesis says that because women have been deprived of opportunities and resources, that is why they prefer men with resources, because they themselves have been deprived. Okay, now that's another alternative explanation. But now evolutionary psych has an answer to that. Like there's a particular community, I guess the Bakweri community, if I'm not mistaken, in Africa, I think. So there's this particular community where in that particular community, women hold more resources and hold more power. But even in that particular society where women hold power and have more resources, land, etc., still they prefer men who are powerful. So that again somewhere falsifies the structural powerlessness hypothesis espoused by people who go with a sociological perspective. That is critics of evolutionary psychology.
Okay.
So evolutionary psych, what it does is tries to give us an alternative explanation compared to the typical culture-oriented view. It does not negate culture. It does not say that culture has no force or no role, or learning is not existing. But it says that we have to also consider that certain biological forces are also maybe creating those tendencies in us. And we need to acknowledge that as a good scientist.
Okay. So evolutionary psychology altogether is giving a different perspective to understand things.
Yeah.
So we are not saying that other perspectives are not right.
Yeah.
But evolutionary perspective is itself is a powerful perspective.
It's just one more, viewpoint. And we can all integrate those viewpoints and come to a better understanding of human nature, human behavior, rather than saying that this perspective is entirely wrong or that perspective is entirely right. Often reality is never so black and white.
Right.
Different perspectives give us complementary viewpoints.
Yeah.
Like long ago, behaviorism, we often heard in behaviorism that you can turn a person into anything just by conditioning, right? But evolutionary psych would say that even behaviorism, radical behaviorism, is somewhere wrong, flawed. Why? there is something known as the Garcia effect. The Garcia effect says that there are certain instincts that we can, certain behaviors that we can learn through conditioning. So if I give a rat, let me give an example. If I give a rat some food to eat, and I pair that food with some, you know, sound, and let's say the rat falls sick after that, the rat is more likely to associate food with sickness rather than some sound. Why? Because that particular association between food and sickness is likely to be learned, not the sound or the light and sickness. So certain associations we can readily learn, certain associations we cannot learn. Why? Because our biological instincts do not allow us to learn those things. If I go to a party and if I fall sick the next day, I'm likely to think that the food made me sick. I'm not likely to think that the music made me sick. Why? Because food and sickness is biologically, paired together
Connected.
in our minds. It is compartmentalized.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So conditioning is not necessarily that conditioning is
Conditioning exists. We cannot
exist.
deny conditioning, but there are limits to what can be conditioned and what cannot be.
Okay, okay, okay. That's really great. We got to know a lot of different perspective through the evolutionary psychology about our day-to-day behaviors. That is really great. I would also like to know your personal things, like what do you do to keep yourself mentally healthy? Three things you would like to share with us.
Me?
Yeah, because this interview is not only to give the perspective to the evolutionary psychology, but we also want our people to understand how psychologists or the people who are expert in psychology, they keep themselves emotionally or the mentally healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, it's difficult for me to outline everything, but from what I would say is that, see, whenever I experience any sort of negative emotions,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, that is my personal strategy. I mean, I am not saying that it would apply to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I try to understand it. Okay, maybe my evolutionary psych background might be helping me. So I just
Okay.
try to understand. Okay, if I'm feeling sad right now, if I'm feeling angry,
Hmm.
what could be the potential reasons behind it? Why am I feeling? I try to introspect. What are the triggering factors?
Mm-hmm.
Then I try to understand. Okay, out of these factors,
Hmm.
what are the factors that are in my control, and what are the factors which are not in my control, and what can I do to change those factors? Right.
Hmm.
So I try to, see that, okay, maybe I'm more of, if you talk about locus of control, we have learned about locus of control, internal, external, right? So
Right.
I try to maybe not go too much towards the external part by attributing blame on the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying I never do that. I also do that, like any other person. Okay, I
Hmm.
also act irrationally
But
sometimes.
generally, because you have knowledge, you do not
Yeah,
try
so
to
I
hit.
try to understand, okay, what actions of myself could have contributed to that situation?
Hmm.
How could I reacted to the situation in another way? I
Mm-hmm.
try to have an open mind. Okay, let me talk to someone I respect. Let me
Hmm.
talk to my superior. Let me talk to my colleagues. Okay, where is this mistake that I've made? What can I do to make myself a better person? I cannot expect everyone to be like me, but at least I can try to understand that perspective and maybe change certain actions of myself. But again, I'm not saying that I've mastered this.
Mm-hmm.
I also make mistakes. I also get angry. I make
Mm-hmm.
other people angry with my behavior. Sometimes that is part of human nature, right? But at least we become better each day by introspecting. So I think introspection is the key to become a better human being, and that will take time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insight and introspection is the key to be better human beings and to be more, you can say, healthily adjusted to environments. I would not say
Mm-hmm.
there is an optimum point of mental health,
Yeah.
but at least there is like a continuum where you try to reach that goal of supposedly optimum mental
Hmm.
health.
So you're saying that whenever you feel a different emotion, an emotion in which you are
Disconcerting.
not comfortable,
Yeah.
so you try to introspect, you try to do the self-talk regarding that,
Yeah.
and you resolve the thing
Yeah.
immediately.
I often read as well. I often read perspectives of different theorists. I try to understand
Yeah.
what different stalwarts in the field have said about certain things,
Hmm.
what are the triggering factors. So that also helps me to
Hmm.
introspect more.
Yeah. So reading or gaining more knowledge about different perspectives is also help us to
Yeah, of course. Yeah, surely,
keep us
definitely. I
mentally
think
healthy.
reading is something that we all need to
Hmm.
cultivate. That's something that us as a skill we have
Hmm.
often lost that touch with that skill nowadays. I feel because of social media or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I also feel that social media, in a way, it's good. It has definitely added, to the information pool that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Social media often triggers that, the mental health issues that we face today because of all the social comparisons that we make, because of
Mm-hmm.
all the wrong information that we are fed with.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I feel that is also often contributing to, especially the youngsters, state of,
Mm-hmm.
emotional balance, because we are so polarized with all the social media information. This
Right.
party has done this is wrong. That party has done that is wrong. We are often so like black and white.
Mm.
I try to across the years, it has taken me time also. I was also very hot headed as a youngster, like let's say 7 8 years ago. So but
Mm-hmm.
now if I am upset about certain situation, I try to understand, okay, this particular person has done this as per what newspapers have said, and that has made me angry. But could
Mm.
there be another perspective behind this? Is there another possible truth or explanation behind this? Let me try to find out. Rather than just going by my preconceived notions and making myself more and more upset or angry, I
Mm-hmm.
take the alternate point of view rather than taking a side.
Right. Right. Right.
So I try to maintain a balanced perspective.
Okay, that's really great, Mr. Ankit. So, because here at Council India, we talk about transformation,
Yeah.
we talk about change.
Yes.
So, I would like to know from your personal experience, from your life.
Hmm.
Do you remember the biggest change, biggest impact you have created on the society? Because you are a social psychologist, I can say, because you are closely associated with the social psychology.
Hmm.
So, what is the biggest impact you have ever created in your life on other people's life?
Uh, okay, now that is something that you need to ask people who have come into contact with me, my students, etc. But yeah, from whatever,
You can share, yeah.
yeah, but from whatever experiences I've had, or from whatever feedbacks I've had from students, past students, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
those who have learned under me,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that maybe because I'm more into certain, technical papers like research methodology, statistics. I think the biggest thing that, at least as per me, what I have been able to achieve is that I have managed to instill this sense of critical thinking
Mm-hmm.
in students. Maybe not all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe out of every 100 students, I would have instilled this skill in, let's say, 10 or 20 students. But according to me, those 10 and 20 students, they might influence other people. It's like a snowballing effect.
Right, right,
You
right.
cannot definitely change everyone that you come into contact with. But at least if you are able to change, or if you're able to influence 10% of the people whom you come into contact with indirectly in that chain of influence, you are
Hmm.
able to influence a lot of many people. So
Absolutely.
critical thinking is something that I feel, as a social psychologist, as a research methodology professor,
Mm-hmm.
as a professor of statistics, I have tried to instill the sense of reasoning, data based judgments of situations rather than emotional based judgments of situations or impulse based judgments of situations. That is something that I feel I have been able to do, maybe in
Hmm.
at least 20%
So
of my students. Yeah.
20% of the students. So
Yeah.
can you give us a number? Like, I'm not saying that it should be corrected. Like, till how many people you have reached till now? The 25% that.
We are talking about terms of absolute numbers.
No, you can say though, I mean, general numbers. If you have absolute, that is great.
And this is just an approximation.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say maybe, I don't know. Like if I talk about every year I have, let's say, 40 to 50 students under me, learning under me.
Hmm.
So
So somewhere around
yeah, if I even,
500, we can say.
but again, those are number of students in a batch, right? So
Batch. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So if I say, let's say, if I'm able to influence at least 15, 20 people every year
Hmm.
directly, I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
just multiplied by the number of years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You are doing
Might not be
amazing
large
job.
in terms of absolute numbers, but at least in terms of conversion ratio, I'm pretty happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, that is my little contribution to the society,
Yeah.
instilling critical thinking. And that is where I feel our country needs that critical thinking, because our country is so polarized by emotions. And that is where we divide ourselves and fight with each other. And, we create this
Mm-hmm.
whole mess where people who are in power, etc., are able to influence us, whoever
Hmm.
it is, and
we, we need
defeat our enemies.
we need great teachers. Basically, the teacher who really like to teach, the teacher who really like to create impact.
Yeah,
This
and
is
my person person who has influenced me the way
hmm,
I am today is my professor. I
your
had
professor.
a very, I
Yeah.
mean, very good professor, respected
Hmm.
professor in my university. That
Hmm.
person has really influenced me a lot, and because of him, I think I have maybe acquired some amount of skill. Maybe not as much, but yeah. So I think everyone has this role model in our lives, right? It's very important to have this role model, or what we say guru in the Indian system, and that one person can make a lot of difference in our lives, I
This
feel.
is
So
true. This is true.
a mentor, yeah, like
Yeah.
you're a mentor to so many youngsters, and I really appreciate this what you are doing, the series of talks that you do with different experts, because in a way you are indirectly influencing so many people who are at that impressionable stage, and you are
Mhm.
doing your own bit, which is actually commendable.
Well, thank you so much. So, what are your views regarding Counsel India's work? Maybe you have visited our website, your our social media handles. Maybe you have been in touch with a lot of Counsel India people. So, how was your experience so far? What do you think
I mean,
about
I
it?
think I did see a couple of videos on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
before I interacted with you today, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel that what you are doing at this age, at a very young age, which is actually commendable. Why? Because you are trying to reach each and every nook and corner of the country. You know, see, it's not always that money, financial gains, those things are definitely important, but at the same time, being in
Mm-hmm.
this very noble profession, and being in a profession where we can influence so many people gradually,
Yeah.
right? You are actually taking those steps to build that foundation. I am very sure that will take a lot of time, right, to build a very strong foundation. But at least you have begun that at this very young age, and that is something that I really feel it's commendable what you're
Yeah,
doing.
actually, we are doing quite good from last 5 years.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have
yeah.
transformed lakhs of people till now. We are
That's
doing work on this
amazing. That's
aggressively.
amazing, and I feel that I can resonate with that viewpoint of yours, because even I personally am someone who believes that whatever is in our capacity, what we can do, right, at an individual level, we should try to go all out and do that
Hmm.
without thinking of the consequences or whatever it is, right? And
Right.
that is something that you are doing, and I really appreciate Counsel India, and I wish you the best of luck for reaching out to so many people, even in the future, and keep continuing the good work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ankit. And with this talk, it is not just we are getting the information about the evolutionary psychology, but because in India there is a perspective of psychology students, they generally want to go for the psychology field, for the
Yeah,
clinical field, for the organization field. People do not want to generally literally go to for the research. So
yeah,
you have shared your own personal experience. You are also transforming people. You are creating impact on youth.
yeah.
So it is gonna also help them to think about this, that they must opt the research as their
Yeah.
career.
See, any science, any science, be it behavioral science or any kind of physical science, biological science, it
Mm-hmm.
needs good quality research, right? And I
Absolutely.
feel that in India, that is my opinion. That is my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying it's my personal opinion that I feel our country needs to go a long way when it comes to research in the behavioral science field.
Mm-hmm.
Often, I feel that we have not really, caught up to latest trends or emerging trends in research when it comes to behavioral sciences, and that is where we lag. That is why, how often do we see good quality textbooks or good quality papers written by Indian authors? Very less, right?
Very much.
Typically we read papers who are written which are written by American authors, or British authors, etc., etc., right? They are doing so much of good work, but why is it that somewhere we are still lagging in those aspects? So I
Right.
feel we need to encourage the youth to do more
Mm-hmm.
good quality research in this field, in behavioral science. And
Mm-hmm.
also we need to help the youth to understand that go out of this boundary of clinical psych or industrial psych. Those are artificial boundaries that we have created. Right. I don't adhere to those boundaries. Let me be very honest. I feel that each and every discipline can complement each other. Knowledge of
Yeah.
psychology can also help us to understand economic situations better.
Yeah, and it must be on the basis of the need. You should
Exactly. Yeah,
understand what is
yeah. We should
needed
understand what are the
nowadays.
problems that our society is facing. We should try
Mhm.
to answer those problems and understand, okay, what can I do to help the, help the general people or the government to solve those problems, rather than just saying, okay, you know what, I want to do my master's in clinical psych. I want to do this testing. I want to do this therapy. Now that
Mhm.
is a very narrow view, right? At least that's what I feel. Try to
Well,
expand horizons and try to see beyond the typical boundaries, conventional boundaries.
yeah.
And I think
Well,
universities need to do that.
well, Mr. Ankit, it was really a nice conversation with you.
Thank you.
We really got to know a lot of things from your end, different perspectives to look for the things. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being there with Council India. Thank you so much for this, for your time. And viewers, if you have any question related to the evolutionary psychology or any kind of question related to the psychology, you are most welcome. You can write to Council India. We are here to help you. We are here to give you some different ideas. We are here to give you some emotional responses to be the better and do great in your life. Thank you so much.